Here's a question for you. Do you think that the U.S. government should run a passenger rail system? Amtrak has got quite a few passengers. The Northeast Corridor is one of the most profitable transportation systems in the country. But when you take a look at the overall rail system in the U.S., it's kind of a net failure. Now, personally, I like Amtrak. I actually enjoy riding Amtrak. I would love for there to be high speed rail in the United States. I don't see that happening with our current governmental issues. Why? As you will see in the clip, because Bernie Moreno is currently saying that he thinks that Amtrak should be sold. He's a senator from Ohio. And in the clip that you're going to see, you're also going to hear how Ohio said, no, we don't want high speed rail. It wasn't high speed rail, it was like 39 miles an hour. It was not even high speed. But with the way that we handle rail in the United States, it's not exactly safe for those that deal with it. Now, there aren't that many crashes, but when there are, it makes an impact. Not trying to make a pun there, sorry. But this is an honest to God, valid transportation system that has been run badly, in my opinion. Northeast Corridor aside, you take out the Northeast Corridor from Amtrak, it has been run exceedingly badly, partially because they get no right of way. Seriously, they get no right of way. This is a country that could have some good high speed rails, but they won't do it because local government, state government, both don't want the speeds because of safety concerns. Most of the time, those safety concerns aren't actually there. But you also have the problem of is that there's a lot more voice for the cargo rail than there is for the passenger rail. So that has caused problems. So let's let you hear this clip. Also, if you don't mind, hit like, subscribe, all that fun stuff, and discuss this. But I'll come back after the clip.
Howdy, y'all. This is Paul, the Redneck Thinker. What we have here is a channel to communicate. I want you folks to be thinking by the time you leave my videos. Why? Because I'm tired of people talking via what other people tell them to think. So, watch my video and enjoy the chance to think for yourself.
The expansion of Amtrak rail service in Ohio has been talked about for years, and initial studies have looked at the viability of a number of new routes.
But as the legwork continues, Ohio Senator Bernie Moreno questions whether the federal government should be in the passenger train business at all. News 5's John Kosick has been following the Amtrak expansion talk for more than 15 years, and tonight he is following through with the very latest.
Amtrak set an all-time ridership record last year, serving nearly 33 million passengers, but it came with an operating loss of $705 million, a number the rail service points out is decreasing. Still, it was part of the reason why Ohio Senator Bernie Moreno raised the question, when it comes to Amtrak, what are we doing?
The government should just sell it. We shouldn't be in the railroad passenger business. It's the only business line that the government is involved that deals with consumers.
In 1971, Washington took over the nation's passenger rail system in an effort to save it. Routes remain limited in places like Cleveland, where the only Amtrak trains that come through do so in the middle of the night.
The government just is incapable of running a private business. Let's just sell it. I'm not against rail service. I think we need to have great rail service, and the impediment to great rail service is America owning Amtrak.
He held up as an example Brightline, a private rail service that started operating across Florida in 2018, connecting Miami to Orlando in 3.5 hours, he said, versus 7 on Amtrak.
Price, by the way, is the same. Much more modern cabin, much better experience, much better facilities.
I think this is very typical of the kind of lazy logic that Amtrak critics, particularly those in Congress, used for decades.
Stu Nicholson is an Ohio rail advocate. He says what Brightline is doing in Florida could very well be a model in parts of the country, but
if we did what he is proposing, we would have fewer options and not more to travel, between cities.
Senator's comments come at a time when Ohio is working with Amtrak in the study of expanded rail service in Ohio. 3 routes, including the much talked about 3C+D, reconnecting Cleveland and Cincinnati with stops in Columbus and Dayton. It's a discussion that began 15 years ago when the Obama administration awarded the state $400 million for a high-speed passenger rail system, money the future Governor John Kasich promised to send back if elected after studies revealed what the average speeds of those trains would be.
I'm governor. The 39-mile-an-hour high-speed passenger train is dead.
And kill it he did. And when Amtrak approached the state a few years ago, Governor DeWine told me he had the same concerns about speed, but agreed to the studies that would answer that very question and whether there will be the ridership to support it. That's why Nicholson says this is not the time for talk of cuts.
It would be very short-sighted, either at the federal level or at the state level, to be cutting funding for this and ignoring this.
So interesting. I just spoke with the folks at Brightline in Florida that Senator Moreno held up as an example. And they tell me that they could be a model for smaller slices of the country, 250 to 300 mile runs, like one they're building connecting Las Vegas to Southern California, but not the long distance markets like those served by Amtrak.
So Cleveland and Cincinnati, that would fit right in their wheelhouse, would it not?
It would. And I actually asked them about that. And they said they've had talks up here, more on the advisory side. But they tell me we have the one thing that they do look for in a market, and that is enthusiasm around a new service.
No shortage of that. All right, John Kosick live for us tonight. John, I know you'll keep us all up to date as things develop.
I'm going to say a little bit of an aside here. I am not trying to protect Amtrak when I make this video. I am honestly doing this to educate people. But Amtrak is one of the few mass transit options that I have. Flying on airplanes is... medically, I shouldn't do it, but I probably will, for the simple fact of that if I have to travel somewhere a long distance, there are no... I'm not getting on Greyhound. I like Greyhound a little bit, but I've also had experiences on Greyhound where I've looked at it and gone, why was I on here? So, Amtrak, on the other hand, I've had, and other than the expense of getting food, I think it's a really good option. I got stuck in New York City one time. Let me tell you something. You don't want to get stuck in New York City because of airplanes. There was talk that it would take a few days because of some major outages that happened. And I wanted to get home, see my kid. So I went and grabbed an Amtrak down to Virginia from New York City. I got to see my kid, get on an airplane, and go back to New York. I had to go to Albany. I was in New York City for a few weeks working. Went down, saw my kid, got on an airplane, and went up to Albany. That was my weekend. I got back home Saturday night because, well, it's like a few hours, or it was several hours on an Amtrak. And I didn't have a bad impression then. I have gone from Virginia to Philly. That's a fun little trip. I don't have a problem with Amtrak, so you're not going to hear me bashing Amtrak, except for the fact of that as someone who is a Adam Smith laissez-faire capitalist. I say Adam Smith because there are so many of these so-called capitalists that I don't agree with. But reading what Adam Smith and the early purveyors of laissez-faire capitalism said, I am not a fan of government running something like this. Now, you may disagree with me, and I want to hear if you disagree with me, but it keeps coming in as a net negative. Could it be that we need to privatize it and turn it into something that would be more profitable? Is it also a situation where we need to figure out how to deal with these local communities that could benefit from Amtrak? By the way, you could actually benefit. These these places out in the middle of nowhere could benefit from a valid Amtrak route. But they don't, because you have so many communities going, well, we don't want the speeds and this and that and the other thing. But the safety record of Amtrak is not horrible. It could be a little bit better. Rail travel safety is not horrible. Yes, when one crashes, it makes big news because it is bad. But look at airplanes. How often do you hear about airplanes? How often do you hear about rails? Think about that for a minute. You hear far more about regular traffic. So, do you think, in all honesty, that Amtrak should be privatized? Or do you think that it should still be a government agency? Now, I say if more people want it to be a government agency, I say that we need to fix some things. We need somebody to go in and do a valid fix. But if you're for privatization, do you think that we also need to work on the environment in which Amtrak or whatever rail, whether it Brightline, Elon Musk's attempt, or any of these other things, do you think that this could be fixed from a governmental law perspective? So you tell me. This has been Paul, Redneck Thinker. Y'all have a good day now. Bye. So, folks, that's the story that I wanted to bring you on this video. And I just wanted to say thank you again for coming by. Hit like, subscribe, comment, all that fun stuff if you don't mind. Help me out. So, y'all have a good day now. Bye.